Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Coe. I'm the CEO and founder of Black Women in Clinical Research. The mission is to educate, empower, support, and help Black women thrive in the clinical research industry. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Eli Lilly here today, and we are going to be talking about getting the right clinical research role, a meet and greet with Eli Lilly. We have Maurice Taylor, who is the director of talent sourcing and recruitment, marketing and diversity recruiting. We have Melissa Coe, who is, we're going to figure out how we're related one day, who is the COO advisor, pharma project management. And we have Stacey Bledsoe, who's the advisor of the global medical engagement and outreach. So if you guys wanted to go ahead and introduce yourselves, Maurice, we can definitely start with you.
All right, my name is Maurice Taylor. I've been with Lilly for 22 years, and I'll just explain what my long title means. But several years ago at Lilly, we decided to make a very direct effort to make sure that we have diversity in our recruitment efforts. And my job was created because I have a team that ensures that not only do we source for very difficult to fill roles, but we also engage within the community locally and nationally to ensure that Lilly's name is known out there among minorities and certainly diversity, which is a broad definition, but also that we're attracting them and we're bringing them to the table and allowing those individuals to be considered for opportunity. So I've been with Lilly. Hopefully throughout this session today, we can talk a little bit more about how you can be successful through the application process at Lilly and learn a little bit about what we do within our organization. So that's me.
Thank you, Maurice. Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Melissa Coe. I'll just give a very brief overview, and then I think I'll get more into my career background in just a minute. But I've been at Lilly for 12 years. I currently sit in our clinical trials project management organization. So I help support various assets across the portfolio. My role is responsible for leading the strategy and plan and execution of our various molecules as they work across our drug development pipeline.
Thank you, Melissa. Stacey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacey Bledsoe. I am the advisor for global medical outreach and engagement. Like Maurice said, probably about 9-10 years ago, we changed our title. Advisor is just another word for director at Lilly. It's all about the number of direct reports that you have is what determines what your title is. So sometimes I just use the word director externally because people can relate to that more. But I am basically responsible for our external strategy for our diversity and clinical trial efforts. So we have made a deliberate effort to ensure that we are increasing our diverse representation of our patients. And so I am leading that effort externally. So I partner with external organizations around collaborations and partnerships to address that topic around diversity in clinical trials. And I'll talk a little bit, like Melissa, about my journey at Lilly over the last 18 years. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Stacey. So Maurice, did you want to start with diving in and, oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I knew I was going to do that at least twice during the call today. So one thing I want to talk about as I introduce how people can get connected with Lilly is that a little bit about our journey over the years in the D&I. And I've been with Lilly a little bit longer than both Melissa and Stacey, but when I began with the company, it was a lot different than it is today. We've gone through 3 CEOs, and on our current CEO, Dave Ricks, who's been in the role approximately 4 or 5 years or so, the company has really been focused on really being more inclusive and developing an inclusive culture. And so before that, jobs like mine, and I don't know if jobs like Stacey existed in terms of just direct responsibility. And so that's the one thing that our CEO is really focused on. In addition to that, we have made huge strides in the racial justice arena, which if we get questions, we can address. But I run another program at Lilly. It's a professional apprenticeship program, which allows individuals who may not have the level of education that we have to get into professional roles that we have at Lilly, and we provide development and training. But in terms of how to get connected with Lilly, I'll give you all what I call my top 4 or 5 points that I think is super critical in getting into a company like Lilly or Merck or Pfizer, J&J, you name it. I think getting into big pharma, I think these tips will help. One is that don't just apply to one job, okay? I mean, there are various jobs that we have that align with your background. So people often tell me, Maurice, I applied for a job at Lilly, but I got turned down, and so I'm not applying anymore. And that's not the right approach. We staff jobs with various people for various reasons. Sometimes they're internally staffed, sometimes they're a contractor working in the space who assume the position. And so I tell people that no one gets mad when you post for 2 or 3 jobs over a particular period of time. So feel free to apply to as many jobs as you feel like you qualify for. So let me talk about qualifications. When you look at our job descriptions and many others in our industry, you'll have something called basic qualifications or minimum qualifications. When you look at those minimum qualifications, if I'm the recruiter, if you don't have those, then you get an immediate decline, okay? So you must have those minimum or basic qualifications. Now, to be competitive, what you will see on most job descriptions would be something called either preferences or additional skills. Now, in an ideal world, when we meet with a leader like Stacey or Melissa, they tell us, here's what I want. I want someone that has all of this. What we do is we take the basic part of that and we make it the basic requirements. All the other things we put in the preference section. And so as a recruiter, I might look at a resume and I know what Stacey wants. And so then I start evaluating you based off those preferences. And then when you have some of those preferences, that's when I forward that resume to a person like Stacey or Melissa to consider for a phone screen or for an additional interview. What people make the mistake in doing is using the same resume for every job they apply to. And what I always tell people is look at your resume or your CV as a template. And then look at the job description and try to bring out or elevate or spotlight those things that are in that preference or additional skills or additional responsibilities. And so when you do that, when that recruiter who knows what Stacey wants is looking at your resume, they say, oh, wow, those things are highlighted. Now, some people use like words, but I would actually give examples of some of those things that you see in the preferences section, because that's what's going to make Stacey or Melissa say, okay, this is a good person that I would want to consider for my role. And then the final thing for this portion, I'll say, is that all major companies have what we call job alerts on their websites. So when you go into the career website, you'll see on Lilly, Merck, Pfizer job alerts. And those job alerts are really important because what they do is they notify you when there's a job that is aligned to your skills. So whenever a corporation has a section called job alerts, I would encourage you to put clinical or whatever the role you're interested in, if it's a physician role, if it's a clinical role. And then when the job comes in your inbox, you'll have a chance to evaluate it and apply. Oftentimes people say, well, I checked your website or I'm on LinkedIn. When you do the job alerts, you'll actually get a notification actually before you will see it out there on Indeed and LinkedIn. It'll hit your inbox immediately. And so if it's on your phone or you're getting it on your computer at work, you'll see the role. It's really important that when you do see a role that you apply as soon as you can, because as as individuals apply, the recruiter uses a technique, and a lot of recruiters use it, called first in, first review. So oftentimes they're not going to cherry pick and go to the 100th applicant to bring you forward. They're going to start at the beginning and then either move you forward for a manager review or decline you initially. Once they've received a sufficient amount of individuals for the manager to review, then they may stop and may not review the other 85 resumes that have applied for the role. So it's important that you already have kind of your game plan set. So when that job opens up that you're interested in, that you immediately apply for that role so that your resume can be reviewed first. So I'll be quiet and let you move on, Danielle, and you can come back to me later with some additional things.
Okay, so what you said, I felt like is very important, Maurice. So pretty much having being on the job alert is like you're on the VIP list. So,
Yeah.
you know, you want to be notified when that's very good information. Be notified, you know, the first one to find out. And so I think a lot of people don't realize too, with applying for the jobs, that the sooner that you can apply for the job, the better. So don't delay when you see that job. And that's why it's always good to be ready and making sure that your resume is ready so that when these opportunities are available, you can go ahead and upload all of your information. So just really a quick question, Maurice, since we're talking about the resumes. So when it comes to the resume, should this be a Word document or should this be a PDF, or does it matter?
Yeah, so in the beginning, and there's a term called applicant tracking systems that every corporation has, and that's that interface that you see when you apply for a role. In the beginning, applicant tracking systems are quite sensitive. The technology is now advanced, so it doesn't make a difference if it's a Word document or a PDF, at least with the system that we use. I've kind of tested it out. But you bring up a really good point. The other thing that we do is proactively search our database for talent. So let me give you an example. So someone in a role like Stacey's may come to me and say, Maurice, I'm thinking about posting a role that looks like this. What I would do then proactively is go look in our database and see if anyone's applied for a role like that previously. Then I would notify them and say, hey, we're going to have a role come open. Please be on the lookout. But the other thing that we do is every major company has what we call a talent community. And a talent community is a community where you can put your information within a company, your resume, a little bit about you. And then if they have an in-house sourcing team like we do, we can source those resumes in advance of the opening and present it to Stacey to say, hey, here's the type of talent we're seeing in our talent community when you post your job. And so we can do that as well. And so what I will do before the call, and I sent you this, is I have a special talent community for individuals that we're interacting with today. So as Stacey and Melissa and I think about opportunities, or we discuss it with our senior leadership, we can have those resumes from this session be the first resumes that we review for consideration for future job openings. The same thing if we would go to NSBE or SHIP or anything like that, we would look at this talent that we meet today in advance of any opening in the future. So we'll provide that link to your audience before we are done with the call.
Okay, and one more question. With the database, how long can people stay in the database once they, submit their information?
Yeah, so we actually like to review resumes that are probably less than 8 or 9 months old. Once they get a year old, maybe you've changed jobs and maybe it's not the most updated resume. So I would say probably a general rule is probably every 6 months, go in the talent community and update your resume. If you always wanted to work for Lilly or Merck, every 6 months, go in there and update your resume. Typically, there's a notification that you'll get from those organizations that say, you have an updated resume already, or they will take your resume. And then you made me bring up, you made me think of another good point. Keep your LinkedIn profile updated, because my team, we all have what we call LinkedIn Recruiter. And LinkedIn Recruiter Seat actually gives you a view of an individual that's a slightly different than the view that you get being just a regular consumer of LinkedIn. And so, and if you've notified LinkedIn that you're open for opportunities or you have a personal email that's there, our recruiters actually get it. And so we use LinkedIn Recruiter just like search firms, just like CROs. And sometimes we just go out there and proactively look for talent that's out there. And so when you have a LinkedIn profile that doesn't have much detail or hasn't been updated in a year or so, then it naturally moves you out of being sourced as a passive talent. And we call that passive talent. You're not looking for a job, but then in your inbox, then you got a message from me saying, hey, we got this clinical project manager role open, clinical trial project manager role open at Lilly. You should consider it. So hopefully that helps.
Definitely. I know it will, because keeping that LinkedIn up to date is very important. And every time, you should, when you acquire a new skill, you should also, update it. So that way it's fresh, it's new, and people can reach out to you based upon that new skill that's been added. So Stacey, can we just have you kind of talk about your position and your journey and how you kind of got to where you are now?
Yep. Thank you, Danielle. So I'm just going to share with you all just some pieces of advice, some jewels as I've gone through my 18-year career. And I'm going to be transparent and honest with you. Lilly is like every other corporate company. We have our ups and our downs. It's not all, roses for everyone. And so I just want to say that to be transparent. I think Maurice, Melissa, and I are happy with where we are in our careers at this moment, but that may not have always been right. So a little bit about me. I am a nurse by background. When I entered Lilly, I came from Riley Hospital, which is as a newborn ICU nurse. So I came in with my BSN. And one of my sorority sisters worked at Lilly, and she called one day and said, hey, we are hiring in our call center nurses, pharmacists, and physicians. Jewel, for all of you. That first position you take may not be your ideal position. But if this is your way of getting into that company, it is something to consider. Now, I'm going to be transparent. When I walked through the door of Lilly from being a nurse, my salary doubled. So it was a no-brainer for me, but being in a call center was not my ideal role by far. So that's my first nugget and piece of advice. This may not be your ideal opportunity, and different companies, especially around clinical development, do their processes differently. Things, some people outsource things, some things are insourced. So I just want you all to be open to the opportunities that may come your way. So I came in through the call center. Y'all, I made it about 18 months before I was like, this is not for me. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was difficult, right? We were tied to a computer. I was used to walking around on the floor. So about a year in, I started looking for a new position. And at the time, Maurice and Melissa can for this, we had a 3-year rule where you could not leave your job for 3 years. And so I remember going and networking with folks about this job that I had seen. It was an outcome liaison job. So I knew immediately I love external work. I like interfacing with customers. And I knew that's where I wanted to go, either to a medical science liaison role or the outcome liaison role, which is its counterpart for our pharma companies. So formulary decision makers. So if you have a healthcare background, that's an opportunity that's different from an MSL role. It's just with payer customers. So I went to a couple of one-on-ones, and I remember the second person I got to said, you don't have a master's degree. We're not even going to consider you for this job. Now, what she didn't know is I had started my master's degree prior to coming to Lilly. So what she did at that moment was motivate me to continue my master's degree. Jewel number 2, never let anybody tell you what you cannot do. So I started networking, found someone who was actually a sorority sister that was a manager in that department. And she said, you know what? I have a job opening up. I'm going to send it to you. Lilly is a networking, like most companies, networking company, and it is all about relationships. So it may not, I know as a lot of times We are not comfortable with that, but that is a lesson that you will learn pretty quickly that you have to do at these large companies. You have to learn to network, and sometimes that's outside of company time, and sometimes that's within company time. So that's another jewel. Sometimes we got to step out of our comfort zone, and you all just sitting at your desk and doing your job well is not enough. It's not a lot of companies. You have to be able to network and sell yourself and talk to people, because a lot of times within Lilly, before positions are posted, they're already coming to you saying, hey, Melissa, I got this job opening up. I want you to consider it. Do you have someone in mind that you can refer to me? So I went on to become an outcome liaison because of my relationship with my sorority sister. And you know what she said? I had started back on my master's degree. She was like, because you were in your program, I'm going to bring you over. So I went over, I did that for about 4 years, went to Lilly's leadership development program, which was Six Sigma at the time. And I made a decision I did not want to go back to my previous role. There was nowhere for me to go unless I wanted to do research. So I had to network. I had to build on relationships to say, where was I going to go next? And I remember my supervisor at the time literally sitting me down and saying, you are on your own. You came into this program with the intentions of going back to where you came from. You've made the decision you don't want to go back. So you got to figure this out on your own. The only thing I had was networking, right? So I started talking to people, figuring out what folks were doing, where I could fit in. And I went to a small part of our organization called our Pediatric Capability Program. They wanted to build this pediatric program. I built on the expertise that I came into Lilly with, which was my pediatric background from the hospital. Another jewel, what you bring into a company matters. Don't let anyone tell you that transferable skills don't matter. I leveraged my medical expertise from being in that call center, knowing pediatric patients to say, let me help you build the strategy around this new organization. So I did that. And then I learned pretty quickly. I had a supervisor who I was speaking to one day about the refugee crisis over in Europe. And he was saying he was going to go volunteer. And I remember talking to him. At Lilly, we have a employee volunteer program where we send our employees out for 2 weeks out of the year to volunteer in different parts around the country, around the world. And I remember him saying, you know, he was going to go volunteer. And I was like, why not take it to corporate and see if we can make this a part of the program? Because we did not have a component of that program for our healthcare professionals. We took it up. He taught me at that moment how to network up, right? How to manage up, how to network your ideas. We went to our corporate responsibility folks, our lead, we went to our chief medical officer, and we said, we want to build this program. Everyone said, great. And then they said, but you know what? You're going to have to own it. So he comes to me and he says, hey, Stacey, what do you think about managing this program? And at that moment, I said, for a promotion, I'll manage it. And he said, it's yours. I got to write my own description, right? With a promotion included. And it's another lesson. So at that moment, I had an aha moment of figuring out there is opportunity to look for places within your company where you can bring value. And so that started my journey. And so I always tell people I'm a nurse, but I have never done clinical trial, y'all. I have never been in an organization where I've managed clinical trials. This is about the closest I've been in the CT diversity space. So I built that program for our healthcare professionals. On Lilly, I've gone to 7 countries. I ran medical clinics within 7 countries with our healthcare professionals where we volunteer for 2 weeks out of the year. And so from there, I and I know we have time, so I'm gonna wrap this up really quickly. In 2015, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I remember sitting in front of his doctor and saying, what about clinical trials? Can we look at that as a treatment option? And she said, I have no idea about any clinical trials. And it wasn't that she was a bad oncologist, it's just was something that they didn't consider as part of the treatment plan. So once again, I came back inside, I sat down with my chief medical officer and I said, hey, what are we doing around diversity in clinical trials? Because all of us knew that we weren't doing well as an industry and that we needed to do better in this space. And he informed me, hey, I don't know, go talk to these VPs. So I went around on this talking to different VPs around the company saying, hey, what are you doing for diversity in clinical trials? And every single one of them said, hey, it's a very important topic. We should be doing better, but I don't know of anyone who clearly owns this space. Once again, Jewel, you all, I went to my chief medical officer and I said, hey, let me do some work in this space. Let me go to some external organizations, figure out what the rest of pharma is doing. And I started a grassroots effort, and I pulled people like Melissa together, the head of our employee resource organization from an African-American perspective, our chief officer over our outreach for multicultural marketing. We all sat down in a meeting and I was like, you all, we need to do better in this space. Can you help me put together a strategy to move this topic forward? While we were in the process of doing that, COVID hit. And I get a call from my chief medical officer and he says, Stacey, what are we doing in this space? And I was like, Tim, not very much, right? These are, everyone I've spoke to, but guess what? I've been doing work in this space and I know what we should be doing. And part of the pressure around COVID was driven by the fact that the major pharmaceutical companies have received the letter from the Senate. And they asked us, what were we doing to increase our diversity in our clinical trials for COVID and just diversity overall? And so there was a lot of fire underneath every pharmaceutical company to figure out what we needed to do in this space. So at that moment, I had pretty much made myself almost the SME or the expert within Lilly in this space. And so he came to me and said, well, what should we be doing? He gave me a senior director to work with, and she was awesome. In the beginning, I'm going to be honest, I was a little skeptical. She came into our first meeting and she said, hey, I'm from Australia. I don't know anything about this space, but the one thing I give her credit for is she said, but I'm here to learn. I sent her literature. I told her, here's what I think we should be doing from the literature, and she championed that with me. And so I actually got this position because of championing the diversity space and saying we need to be doing better. I was able to drive our corporate goals around that, get alignment from a leadership perspective. And so, when they came out, they were like, we're going to post a position. And they said, hey, we're going to do this position. It's going to be internally and externally focused. Are you going to put in for it? And I remember sitting down with my supervisor and saying, I don't want that role. I didn't want it. I did not want to touch the internal clinical trial space, right? So I told her, I said, can we split it? Can I take the external strategy and you hire someone to do the internal strategy for this work? And my chief medical officer said, yep, you can have it. So I have a counterpart. Now we're kind of tied at the hip because it's not as easily split as I thought it was going to be. She runs the internal strategy for diversity in clinical trials, and I run the external strategy. So while my roles have been untraditional, I have Jules to say, if you see an issue, if you see a problem, speak up, be an advocate for it. There is opportunity there. We don't have all the answers in the pharmaceutical company. No company does. And so that's kind of my story loosely, Danielle. So I'll kind of transfer to Melissa for her to tell her story.
Well, that definitely is amazing. I really, from what you said, Stacey, I think it's important to create your own path, and that's why it's really good to hear different people's journeys, because that can help you really create your own path. And so you can figure out what your strengths are and what is the right position for you. Finding your niche, I think, is so important in this industry. So, being able, like you said, your transferable skills. So I really got a lot of good key points. I even took notes myself, I would say, you're never too far in your career where you can't learn something from someone else. And, things that you hear really can, resonate with you. And so, especially with what Stacey said, like your first job is not going to be your ideal job. And it's okay to start from the bottom and start a grassroots type of, career. And, that first position shouldn't make you feel like you're stuck, but it should actually propel you so you can figure out what ways that you can move. I always usually tell people to use those positions as a stepping stone, because just because you started here doesn't mean this is where you're going to end up. And so I think it's really very important what you said, networking and selling yourself and being able to tell people in these positions, hey, I have this idea. this can, I have a better process that, and just by you speaking up, it created so much opportunity for you. And this is what helped you with your journey and your career. And I think it's important for people to know, like, it's okay. Like, you have ideas, you don't have to keep them to yourself.
Yes, I totally agree. And just one more thing, believe me, I got the idea, I got the messages around, where's your career map? You guys all get that question. Where's your career map? And where does this next opportunity fit on your career map? And I think it's okay to say, I have a career map, it's traditional map, where I want it to go, but there's also opportunities that's going to come up that may not be on that career map. It happens every day, depending on where we're going. Right now, health equity is a huge thing within pharmaceutical companies. Those positions didn't exist 3 months ago. So, be okay with saying, hey, this is not on my career map, but this is part of my passion. Here's my expertise. Here's my transferable skills for these roles.
Definitely. Passion can go a long way. Melissa, would you like to share your journey?
Well, after Stacey, I don't know, like, we'll see. But no, you did such a great job, Stacey. I will try to be just as transparent and open as she was, and try to drop some jewels along the way. So just to share a little bit about my background for context in my career journey. So I'm a little bit of an oddball at Lilly in that I have an industrial engineering degree. I worked for a large aerospace engine company for a few years and went back and got my MBA. And I came to Lilly after my MBA program. One of the things that Maurice shared earlier was if you apply for a position, don't get discouraged if you don't get that position. The first position I applied for at Lilly, I went through the entire process, on-site interviews, thought I had the job, and I got a decline. And I was just so devastated. I thought that was it for me at Lilly. And I did have some support. My husband was one of them that was like, don't be discouraged, keep looking out there. And lo and behold, there were other positions that came. So I think that's a really great jewel that he shared. I've definitely run into, not just then, but also during my time at Lilly. I've had multiple jobs that I've applied for at Lilly where I thought, man, I have all the qualifications and I really want this position, and I've gotten declined. So, I think that's just something you have to take with you throughout your career, to not be discouraged, to continue to stay focused on your goals and what it is that you're looking to achieve. Just because one person says it's not the right position there's still something in store for you in the future. So you have to stay just encouraged in that and not give up. So I came to Lilly, I joined in our clinical trial materials organization. That was 12 years ago. And I think one of the first pieces in my career journey in joining that organization was I was not really in the driver's seat of my career at that time. I was just excited to have a job at Lilly. I just kind of felt like, as long as I just work hard, if I put my head down and I perform well, I'm going to get the opportunities. And, for the most part, I was getting opportunities. They, kind of moved me around to a few different positions, but it continued to be lateral positions. So, over a course of 8 years in that organization, I did 5 different jobs, but it kept being laterals. And, I was kind of waiting for my management and waiting for someone else to kind of tap me and kind of create that opportunity for me. And it wasn't until I started advocating for myself and I started saying, no, I am ready for that next opportunity. Here's what I've done. Here's what I've done. Here's all of my qualifications. This is what I'm looking for. And it actually got to a point where I kind of hit a stagnant point in my career and I remember I actually ran into Stacey, and I think both her and I were a little bit in tears. We were doing our employee journey at the time. We did an African-American journey, and we were talking about, what so many African-Americans experienced during their time at Lilly. And I think her and I were kind of at the similar point in our careers. And, it just felt like no one was giving me an opportunity. And I hit a point, and I was really clear with my leadership at that time that if there was not an opportunity for me in the near future, I think it was like in the next year, I was going to look elsewhere. And I'm lucky that it worked out, and I was given an opportunity, and I did move into a higher level position, but I really had to fight and advocate for myself. And I had to get out of that mentality of just performing well is enough. As Stacey said, you have to network, you have to advocate for yourself, you have to be okay with rejection because you will get rejected, and just staying focused on that path. So from there, I moved into a director role in a newly formed organization. Loved that opportunity. I was responsible for standing up the organization. So I did all the hiring and staffing of my team and managers on my team. And again, it was just a phenomenal opportunity to be part of the strategy and plan and staffing for an entire team. I did that for about 3 years, and then I moved into the role that I shared with you all just a minute ago, the COO role, where I have a team, actually several teams I lead now for various assets. One other thing I wanted to, or maybe just two more things I'll share quickly, is from a work-life balance standpoint, I just wanted to highlight some things there. Your company will continue to pull as much out of you as you're willing to give. If you are willing to work 24 hours a day, they will gladly accept all of those hours. So again, going back
all of the electronic equipment to go with it.
Look, I'll get you set up in your office so you can continue working. You want more headsets, we'll get you two. So no, you really do have to set those boundaries for yourself. After I had both of my two children, I wanted to be home more, and it was really important to me. And at Lilly, they offer what's called a job share for some positions. And I wanted to do that so I could be at home part-time with the kids and work part-time. And I remember having so many people, actually other women, tell me that was career ending, that was like a terrible decision. And if you do that, you're limiting the rest of your career. You'll be looked at as someone who's not taking their career seriously. And I'm so glad that I did, because those were precious years that I would never want to have missed. And my career's done just fine. So I think it's, from a work-life balance, set your boundaries. Your company will continue to take as much from you as they can. You get PTO for a reason. You get benefits for a reason. Take advantage of those things. I think, again, we get into if you're anything like me, you get into a very performance-driven mindset that if I just work super, 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 super hard, I'm going to be rewarded. And quite honestly, usually in corporate America, that's just not how it works. There's the networking and a lot of other things that goes with that. So that would be maybe a little bit of a jewel there. Going back to the networking part, the other thing I would add in my career journey is after I left that CT Materials organization, I was not known in the organization at all. I had no kind of network. I worked at an offsite location that was very removed from kind of our corporate headquarters kind of core area. And so I was starting from scratch after 8 years at the company. And in a very short period of time, I realized I had to get myself out there. So I got engaged in our ERGs. I got engaged in the African American Network. We have an organization for Latinos at Lilly, in our Pride organization. I had to get myself engaged there. And then I also was given an opportunity to lead our D&I work in LRL. So I lead, we have it's called #IamIn for D&I. And I was given that opportunity here recently, and my network has just completely blown up since then. And it's just, again, Stacey already talked about, but I, again, cannot minimize the value of building that network. And I will say for all of you on this call, take advantage of BWICR or BMICR. It's a phenomenal organization. I'm part of it because I want to grow my network outside of Lilly. I've been able to make already some phenomenal connections. I'm part of the mentor program. My mentee's on the call, shout out to her. But there's just, so much that you can take advantage of in these type of organizations, for the networking, for the support system, for the advice. So absolutely continue to take advantage of organizations like this and get engaged. All right, I'll stop there, Danielle.
I want to say thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you definitely for being a mentor and, telling everyone the amazing benefits of, BWICR and BMICR. So like some of the takeaways that I got from you, because I'm also taking notes, like this is really good. And I hope you guys are taking notes too, because I think this is really important to be your biggest motivator. No one's going to advocate for yourself more than you. So a lot of times I know when it comes, even myself included, sometimes I downplay myself and, don't really, because, it's hard to talk about yourself and really show your accomplishments and show, how you are a strong candidate. So really know your skills and be able to have that pitch, like if someone was to ask you about yourself, be able to, say it and give your, go ahead, boost yourself up. You have to. And, setting boundaries, I think is definitely important, because who wants to work all day and all night and not have any free time for themselves and not go on vacation? So yes, use that PTO. Don't be discouraged and definitely stay focused. Like Melissa said, I think that's so important, especially with this industry. So yes, and Rashida Hall, who's over the mentorship program, also said the mentors matter. So yes, thank you very much. I know it's very beneficial in this industry to have mentors, and that's where we felt like things were lacking without having that mentorship and without having someone that you can talk to if you have that question and you need to send a message and ask them, hey, I have an interview tomorrow, can you help me? I know it's last minute, but having that connection and that resource there, I think is very important. So did we want to go back? I know we can do questions. Did we have any last things that we wanted to say before, we have questions? I know you guys mentioned the ERG. So what exactly is the ERG called at Eli Lilly?
It's Black employees at Lilly. B at Lilly is what it's called. And it just actually went through a name change. It was the African American Network. I think someone referred to it. Now it's B at Lilly. So, and just to let you know, on our B at Lilly, it's the longest ERG that we've had at Lilly. It's actually a pretty progressive ERG. One of our goals is to be a premier place of employment for Black employees within the pharma industry. And so, so our company supports that, and we want to make sure that our company is attractive to Blacks across the world, to be honest with you, to bring in the best talent. So that's kind of the focus of our Black employee ERG.
Okay. And quick question too. So when it comes to diversity, do you guys have numbers on how Eli Lilly was able to increase the diversity at Eli Lilly?
So a couple of things. Number one, we were just this year ranked number 3 of Diversity Inc.'s top 50 employers. And so if you know anything about Diversity Inc., they have a very, very tough, highly scrutinizing process to be ranked number 3. One of the aspects of that is increasing representation, okay, within the organization. So I think I alluded to earlier that from a recruitment perspective, my team has a real strong focus on increasing representation. We actually measure that, and we actually show that to all employees on our intranet site on how we're doing in terms of increasing representation. So it's a metric that we put publicly, and our CEO will actually talk about how we're doing anytime that he has a chance to interact with any of the ERG groups, any of the Black employees. So several thousand people will be on a call on Friday because we're going to do it virtually. But if it wasn't for COVID, we actually would all come together in Indianapolis, and it's a great time of professional development and also networking. And we do some partying as well, because you can't get a bunch of Black employees together without a party. Okay.
So a party, like a block party type of.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. So I will open this up to questions. I know we had a few questions in the chat. Let me see. I know one question that stuck out to me one question was about the remote. So with working at Eli Lilly, are the positions remote? Because they were saying they heard that a lot of times with the pharmaceutical companies, they want you to be on site. So how is that with the remote positions?
I'll take it. So it depends which position you're interested in. So first I'll say we have a variety from the clinical perspective. We have several field-based roles that you can apply to. MSL, which obviously you know is field-based. We have another clinical development role. We have some site coordinator roles that are field-based. So there are clinical roles that are field-based. And then for the other roles, it's at the discretion of the manager. We're in a hybrid model right now. And so based on your leadership, they determine how much presence you need to have in the corporate office. For some teams, they're not coming into the office at all. For other teams, it just depends where critical meetings take place and stakeholder discussions take place. You may have to come in the office, but we have a hybrid model where it's at the discretion of the function and the leadership team on how they want the role, where they want the role to be. So I don't think we're fully flexible, but we're a lot better than what we used to be pre-COVID.
Okay, let's see. So someone asked, what metrics are being used when it comes to diversity? Like, what do they say, DEI?
Yeah, so we measure we measure management representation, we measure hiring, we measure and then when you think about management representation, there's a lot behind that. It's about succession management, promotions, and it's about retention, because you can't get representation within the upper part of the company. All that is on our website, and actually some very specific numbers. If you go to our website and look, it's actually on that in terms of representation numbers within the organization.
Okay, and someone asks, do you have an academy for new employees with less than 1 year experience?
You want me to take it again, ladies? So right now we're revamping our onboarding program within the company. But the great thing is that our Black employees at Lilly, we have this thing called mentoring circles. And mentoring circles is where we actually allow new employees to sign up. And we would take a leader like Melissa or Stacey or myself, and we would actually cover critical topics with those new employees as they onboard. So your supervisor will give you an onboarding mentor, and you'll have a peer coach and all that. That's part of the process. But the ERG, the Black employees at Lilly, we will actually go back in and offer additional opportunities for you to be developed. So we, like I said, we have a really powerful ERG, our Black employees at Lilly. And so we do that added. I don't know if Stacey or Melissa wants to add to that.
So with the next question, it said, with regards to the African-American/Black employees that work at Eli Lilly, do you have data or numbers of employees that have either been promoted or able to move forward in their career?
So on our website, the environmental, social, if I had to repeat them, I would get, and governance report, it actually talks a little bit about what we're doing in diversity and inclusion. Let me give you a little bit of advice though. I think the best way to understand what the culture is like for Black employees is to have conversations with the employees, is the best way. And I'm going to really promote LinkedIn, because our African-American Black employees at Lilly are very open to a conversation and a network. So if you're applying for a job at Lilly, you're interested in a job at Lilly, leverage LinkedIn and just say, hey, I know Melissa Coe or Maurice Taylor, Stacey Blitz, they're far more popular than I am. But if you drop their name, I think that'll get you a conversation with anybody that you happen to connect with. And actually, I say that's Black employees, but I think you could do it with some of our non-Black employee colleagues too. We want to engage with diverse populations. And so, and it's pretty well known.
So I do have a question too. When it comes to entry level, because it seems like a lot of people are trying to get into the pharmaceutical companies, what are the entry level positions?
Okay, I'm going to let Stacey and Melissa rattle off a few what they think, and then I have some additional notes I can share. What do you think are entry level, Stacey and Melissa?
So Melissa, I'll let you go first because I want to add on to something after you're done. So
Okay. So I'll just share a few that are in my purview for entry level, particularly for clinical research, clinical trials. And someone on the message asked about like in-house clinical research associate roles that don't travel. I'll try to address that too. So we have quite a few different type of entry level positions, depending on what your background is. So Lilly has very similar to other organizations where you come in at a certain level. So typically we would have entry level P1 to P4, or potentially if you're more research driven, you would come in that research path. But some of the positions that I would say I've seen posted, and I think Maurice, you shared just earlier today, are in organizations like our trial capabilities organization, where we focus on getting all of the regulatory required documents needed to stand up our clinical trial. So that would be like working with all the documentation for like informed consent forms, getting IRBs ready, making sure that all of the regulatory requirements are set and in place. There's a lot of entry level positions and also our site engagement organization. So site engagement is the group, to answer the question about in-house clinical research associates that don't travel. Those are typically the roles that they kind of oversee our CROs and CDCs that would actually coordinate the trials at the sites. So they're the ones that help monitor, communicate with the sites, help work with our external CROs. I think many of you maybe work with like Syneos or IQVIA or some of those different organizations. So those are also entry level. I think another one that I've seen posted recently is in our project management organizations that we hire. So we have both in our clinical trial project management organization, or we call it clinical development, but so for execution of the trial, so you help run and oversee the clinical trials themselves. And then we also have project management roles in what we call our pharma project management organization, where that's more so helping oversee the trials, but at a higher level drug development perspective. So as you take assets from phase 1 into phase 4. So I'm happy to elaborate more on that with anyone, but those would be a few that I would call out.
So I think Melissa covered most of the ones I was going to cover, but I do want to put this out there, and Maurice and Melissa, feel free to fill in. I've noticed that a lot of people come in as contractors, and I know initially that's a turnoff, but it is really big at Lilly for folks to come in as contractors and transition to a permanent Lilly employee. And I know initially when you see those positions, you're like, whoa, do I want to throw myself into a two-year commitment with nothing on the other end? But I can tell you, we've had tons of people actually get hired from contract positions. So Maurice, I don't know if you have some advice there.
Yeah, no, we do. And obviously you have to perform. There's no promises, but those opportunities are there as well. Yeah. Certainly. The other thing I would add, and this is a little bit out of scope for the clinical research, but actually sales, we have several people who've come into sales that have moved into MSLs, especially if you have the higher level education, the PhD, the MD, and the PharmD. We've seen sales reps go into MSL roles and some of the other field-based roles. And you know, when you're on the technical side, you kind of look down on sales, but I'm gonna tell you, we have a great sales organization, and actually learning how the customer transaction takes place with the physician is a really, really important skill set to develop. It could actually take you a lot of places within Lilly. And I would have to say the fastest career path at Lilly would clearly be sales, getting to management, getting to senior director. We have some very, very young leaders in the sales organization. So I know you guys are focused on clinical development, but I think you can leverage the science and the research part to really be effective and have good skills as a sales professional.
That's good information, Maurice, because there are a lot of people in the group that don't have the traditional science background. They might have that business background and have experience in sales. So I think it's really important for people to know, you know, it's about the different positions and, you know, what they can go into. And if maybe someone might not have considered sales, but if sales can lead them to those higher level positions, you know, more quickly, then that can definitely be an option for them. And so I know with time, we're kind of getting over time a little bit, but I just want to have one last final question to ask, and just to get everyone's feedback. How can someone be successful? What is at Eli Lilly, what advice would you give to someone, so that they can be successful, once they come on board to Eli Lilly, or just, how they can be successful with trying to, transition into a position there? I guess it's kind of twofold. Whoever will want to start. He said, ladies first.
I'll take a stab at it. So I kind of already hit these points earlier, but definitely, don't just put your head down and only focus on working hard. Working hard only goes so far. Continue to build your network, continue to advocate for yourself. I think, and work-life balance, like you'll burn yourself out, and then before you know it, you're not going to be able to do anything for anyone. So take care of yourself first.
Everything that Melissa said, on top of follow your heart and your passion. I think the worst thing you can do is to sit in a position and just be unhappy, because at that point you're not giving your full self to the organization, and they're just not fulfilling their commitment to you. I learned years ago from a mentor, it needs to be a win-win situation on both sides. And so, while it may take time for you to get there, like we said, that entry-level role may not be there, but if you are following your heart and your passion and your expertise, it will all come together.
I would say, many people have asked about how it is being Black employee at Lilly. The one thing about Black employees at Lilly, we are actually kind of a family, right? We don't know everyone, but we know a lot of the Black employees at Lilly. And so I remember just calling up Melissa and saying, I got a young man who wants an internship. Melissa was actually leaving the job. She actually worked with that young man, got him an internship at Lilly. And so just the fact that you can pick up the phone or network with anyone in our organization, anyone, but especially our Black employees at Lilly, there's a very close knit, and there's a lot of strong support. And while corporate America is very competitive, I think we would all say that we're here to support people, and we celebrate whenever people get promoted or good things happen to them. And that's the community that we have. And that's why you didn't ask us why we've been at Lilly so long, but I think that would be part of the reason for all of us, is that when we come to work, it's like a family, especially when we see people that look like us. It's a very tight-knit family.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maurice. I feel like that's really what Black women in clinical research is about. And I think that's why it's definitely good to offer these opportunities to everyone, because, with Black women in clinical research, with Black men in clinical research, we really have that family type of atmosphere, that sisterhood, that brotherhood. There is no competition. We want everyone to win. So, like if you see someone that has a position that you want, always feel free to reach out to that person. Don't be afraid and, like, okay, this person doesn't know me. No, this is what we're here for. We have the resources. We want you to connect with people. We want you to network, and everyone that's on the call today, you can reach out to them. Well, let me make sure this is, are you guys okay with people reaching out to you on LinkedIn and,
yeah,
okay,
LinkedIn.
sending messages? Okay, y'all, I got it clear first. Okay. So yes, you can reach out to them on LinkedIn and, ask them, because I know we didn't get through everyone's questions, but, please feel free to reach out to everyone on the call. Reach out to me. If I don't know the answer, I will definitely make sure that I connect you with someone that has the answer. I know a lot of people are talking about how can they get into Eli Lilly with military background, and, it's just reach out to people, connect with people, network, and don't be afraid. And, the key points, update your LinkedIn. Please update your LinkedIn. Get your resume reviewed. Please do not, have just, I'm just throwing out there, don't have objectives still on your resume. That's outdated. Get rid of objective, come on to the new resume. So, and if you have that on your resume, get a resume review with Black women in clinical research, and we can help you. We also have Andrika on the call too, who's our interview prep. So, if you need interview prep, we got you. So I just want to thank Eli Lilly so much. I feel like you have definitely dropped so many jewels and have helped so many people. This has been recorded, so this will be on our YouTube channel. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I just want to thank you guys. This has been great. We had, and just a little bit before we go, I know we're a little bit over, but this was record-breaking numbers as far as how many people registered for the event. Over 200 people registered for this event today. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.